Okay, so that was the hard part of the lesson. Now that we have all that settled, now comes the easy part. Notice that this looks different because this is not an equal sign, but it's okay. We can deal with this because we're going to treat them the same as a regular equation. We're going to do this problem exactly like we would solve it if it were an equal sign. So I'm going to start by putting a line between the two sides. That's my railroad track separating the two sides of the inequality. Okay? What's happening to my variable? My variable is being added to 3. So what's the opposite of add 3? Subtract 3. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. You already knew that. I'm going to bring down my x. I'm going to do 10 minus 3, which is 7. And the only difference between this and what we were doing before is that you're going to bring down that greater than symbol. It's not an equal sign. It's a greater than symbol, which means this problem isn't just 7. In fact, it's not 7 at all. It's anything bigger than 7. So your answer could be 8, your answer could be 9, your answer could be 10, your answer could be 100, your answer could be 500. There are an infinite number of answers to this problem. Now, what we do is we graph those answers because there's so many, we graph them. So we're going to take a piece of the number line. I'm going to do 6, 7, 8. You can number all of them if you want, but you only really need 3 with this number in the middle. I know it's not technically in the middle. I didn't make it nice, but whatever. Okay. And I'm going to shade in anything greater than 7. Everything to the right is greater than. I want to note to you that if this thing were an arrow, it would be pointing to the right. And notice this is pointing to the right. Now I have to decide if I put an open or a closed circle. Does my answer include 7? Let's look up here. These are open circles. So this does not include 7, anything greater than 7. So that's why I taught you all this stuff up here so that you could show me visually all of the answers that are possible. Okay? All right, let's go to number 2. Now, this one's tricky because notice that the variable is not where we like it. It's over here. So there's a couple of different ways to handle that. It really just depends on you and how you think of it. One of the ways is just to draw your line down the middle. You're separating the two sides. What's happening to the variable? It's being subtracted by 5, so we're going to add 5 to both sides. -6 plus 5 is -1. Your symbol comes straight down. This is going to be greater than or equal to n. Okay? Now, because the n's on the right, we can't use this little trick that I used up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip everything. You have to note that this arrow is pointing to the n. So when you do this problem, I'm going to flip it around, put the n over here, but this arrow has to be pointing to the n. So that symbol has to flip over as well. And now I can graph it. This is going to be -2, -1, 0. I always put this number in the middle. Notice because they're negatives, I'm counting, it looks sort of backwards. Okay. And anything less than n, a -1. So remember, if this thing were an arrow, it would be pointing this way. So I'm going to shade this way. And I'm going to need a closed circle at -1 because of this extra line right here. Notice the algebra is exactly the same. You can pause this and try the next one on your own if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and do it. So you can do it with me or you can pause it and watch it in a minute. Here's the two sides of the inequality. What's happening to P? It's being subtracted by 8. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That means P on this side, -4 on this side. Drop down that symbol. It's not an equal symbol. It's a greater than or equal to. Remember that my negatives count backwards. So this is going to be -5, -4, -3. You can do more if you want. Okay, but you only need 3. My arrow, if this were an arrow, it would be pointing to the right. So I'm going to shade this way. These are all greater than -4 because these are the positives over here. So these are all greater. And I do need a closed circle at that -4 because of this extra half and equals to sign down here. It can be -4. All right, next one's tricky like number 2. I'm going to put my line down the middle to separate the two sides. What's happening to the n? It's being added to 25, so I'm going to subtract 25 from both sides. Over here, 80, 70, 60, this is 55, and this side is n. Bring down your symbol. I don't like the n on this side because then I can't use any of my great tricks. So I'm going to notice that the arrow's pointing to the n. I'm going to flip it over here, make sure the arrow's pointing to the n. And now I can do 54, 55, 56. Make sure I'm going to the left, and that is a closed circle. Put an arrow there because that continues on forever in that direction. Okay, that's the end of today's notes. I know there are some tricky parts, this part and this part here, but the solving of it, if you do nothing else on the homework, do the solving of it, and we'll talk about it when you come back to class, or you can watch the videos to go over the homework. But you are going to do some problems on lesson 4 today.